Whenever we talk about rolling out AI, the conversation always seems to go to the tech, the data, the ROI. But what about the people? The ones who pump the brakes and say, hang on a second. Well, that's what we're digging into today, because we're going to explore a really powerful idea about AI resistance. And just to be clear, everything we're covering comes straight from chapters 7 and 8 of a report by Virtualization Options LLC. We're going to zoom in on their analysis of pushback from two key groups, creative teams and legal teams. So here it is, the big idea for today. What if all that friction, all that pushback you get when you're trying to launch a new AI tool, what if it's not actually an obstacle to overcome? What if it's a signal, a really important one, telling you something you desperately need to hear? First up, let's talk about the people who are often on the front lines of generative AI, your creative and marketing teams. The report frames the resistance in a fascinating way, not as them being afraid of change, but as them acting as guardians of the company's brand, its very soul, really. And this is where the trouble starts, right? On one hand, you've got the business perspective, which, let's be honest, is usually about efficiency. How fast can we go? How much stuff can we make? But then you have the creative's point of view. For them, it's not about volume. It's about insight, connection, and making sure the brand means something. And boom, those two worldviews are just fundamentally at odds. So, what does this resistance actually look like? Well, it's not usually someone just shouting no. It's much smarter than that. It's them raising their hands and saying, hey, this AI content is kind of generic, isn't it? Or warning that if we just flood our channels with okay-ish stuff, we're going to cheapen the brand and maybe even tick off the very customers we've worked so hard to connect with. See? They're not just protecting their jobs, they are protecting the brand itself. Okay, so if that's the conflict, how do you solve it? Well, the report suggests a total mindset shift. Stop trying to overcome the resistance and start building a partnership. Let's take a look at what that actually means. So the idea here is pretty brilliant. It's not all or nothing. It's a tiered approach. You let the AI go nuts on the high-volume repetitive stuff, like thousands of product descriptions. But this actually frees up your human creatives to pour all their talent into the things that really move the needle, the big strategic campaigns, the work that actually defines who you are as a brand. And this right here is the absolute key. It is all about how you frame it. If you present AI as a replacement, you get fear. But if you present it as a collaborator, a tool that handles the grunt work so they can focus on the genius work, well, now you get buy-in. You're showing them you still value their judgment for the stuff that truly matters. And that was their whole concern to begin with. All right, let's switch gears. We're going to talk about a totally different flavor of resistance now. This one comes from a place of deep professional duty. I'm talking about your legal and compliance folks, the people whose entire job is to protect the company from future disasters. Think about this question for a second. It gets right to the core of what keeps your legal team up at night. This is not some abstract philosophical problem. If your AI unfairly denies someone a loan or a job, who's on the hook? Is it the company, the software vendor, the engineer who built it? The law is still playing catch-up. And that massive uncertainty is a huge and very legitimate reason to be cautious. And it gets worse because of what's known as the black box problem. A lot of these complex AI systems, they can spit out an answer, but they can't tell you why. For a lawyer, that's an absolute nightmare. I mean, how are you supposed to defend a decision in front of a judge or a regulator if you literally can't explain how the decision was made? The short answer is you can't, and that's a massive risk. So resistance from legal looks totally different. It's not a passionate debate in a creative review. It's formal. It's methodical. It's a mountain of paperwork, demanding risk assessments and exhaustive documentation. It can slow things way, way down. And for really risky projects, it can be a hard veto. They're not doing it to be difficult. They are literally doing the job you hired them to do. So here we go again. Just like with the creatives, the answer isn't to try and bulldoze your way through. The answer is to turn them into a partner. It's about figuring out how to innovate while staying inside the legal and ethical guardrails that simply cannot be ignored. So how do you actually do that? Well, the report lays out a pretty clear game plan. And the biggest rule? Get your legal team in the room from day one. Don't just show up at the end asking for a signature. Work with them to figure out which AI projects are high risk versus low risk. Actively choose AI models that can explain their own reasoning.
Make documentation a part of the process from the beginning, not a chore at the end. The report has this fantastic real-world story. A healthcare company was getting huge pushback from legal on an AI meant to help with patient treatments. So what did they do? They partnered up. Instead of having the AI tell doctors what to do, they redesigned it to be a support tool, one that gave clinicians risk factors and data to consider in their own final decision. And what happened? Legal loved it, approved it, and it turned out to be even more useful for the doctors. The legal team went from being a roadblock to being a champion. So as we pull this all together, you start to see a really clear pattern, right? It doesn't matter if it's a graphic designer worried about the brand's reputation or a lawyer worried about regulatory fines, the motivation is exactly the same. They are trying to protect the organization. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. You've got two very different groups with very different concerns. For creatives, it's about brand and quality. For legal, it's about liability and regulation. But look at the key to partnership. It's almost identical. For one, it's using AI as a tool, not a replacement. For the other, it's designing AI within clear guardrails. Both are about putting people and principles at the center. Which brings us right back to where we started. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you run into that wall of resistance on an AI project, what's your gut reaction? Is it to find a way to push past it? Or do you stop and listen and realize that maybe, just maybe, the person pushing back is giving you the most valuable advice you're going to get? Because that choice could change everything.